Hello, welcome back to another episode of Kebi Yarns with Big Will. Of course, you're here with Big Will. Thanks for joining in, guys. So today I'm going to talk about a very special topic to not just myself, but a few members of my community around Invasion Day, Survival Day, Australia Day, whatever you call it. January 26th is what I'm going to talk about today. However, I'm not going to be doing this topic alone today. I have a very special guest with me today, Mr. Alex Friday. He's a very close friend of mine and definitely someone I hold dear to my heart, and I'm honoured to have him as my first guest on my show. So Alex, who's your mob and where you from?
Cheers, brother. Thanks for that little introduction there, bro. I really appreciate your kind words. Good to be on board with the Kebi Yarns.
That's all right.
And I'm happy to know that I'm your first special guest, so that's pretty deadly.
Just add that to your resume, mate. You'll be good now.
Yeah. Future podcast, watch out.
No.
But as you were saying, who my mob is, so introduce myself, Alex Friday. I was born and bred in Townsville. If you're from Townsville, back then it was the Kerwin Women's Hospital. So that's where I was born and raised.
On Thuringowa Drive, that's where I was born too, eh?
Yeah, Thuringowa Drive. I think it's now I think it's like a mental health place now.
Yeah, I think it is too, yeah.
But yeah, that's where I was born and raised in Townsville. Lived in Townsville till I was about 24. 24, yeah. But my father's side, my grandparents from my father's side, I'm a Okala person. That's my nan. My nan's name was Daisy Boxer, and she was a Okala person from the Kurrumbilla clan. So Okala is up in Laura country, in between Laura Cohen. My grandmother was born on Alice River. So she was born on the banks of Alice River, and that's where she was taken away from when she was part of the Stolen Generation. She got taken away from Alice River, taken to Cohen, and from Cohen made her way down to Palm, where she met my grandfather. My grandfather's name was George Friday, and he is a Nyungle man born in Shipton's Flat. He was taken away from Shipton's Flat when he was 3 years old, I believe.
Yep.
But yeah, he was taken away to Palm from Shipton's Flat, which is Kuku Yalanji is the clan. We're from the eastern Kuku Yalanji tribe. If you're unfamiliar with it, if you know Port Douglas all the way to south of Cooktown to Annan River, that's our eastern Kuku Yalanji tribal lands there. So a good part of the country for myself, and obviously Okala for my grandmother's side as well. You know, a bit of desert and rainforest, can't complain. So yeah, that's a bit from my dad's side.
Yeah. And which way your mother's side? Yeah.
My mum's side from down Cherbourg way.
All right.
So my mum's side, I'm Gubby Waka Waka.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just through her grandfather. See, my nan married a Welsh fella. His name was Ken Bond. He's still alive. Not was. Kenneth Bond, is a Welsh fella. And my mother's name was Penny Embry. So she was a Gubby Waka Waka woman from her father's side. And from her mother's side, she was a Kanju Gamilaroi woman. So yeah, my Waka Waka Gubby side is the Embrys and Cobbos.
Yep.
So my great-great-grandmother is the eldest Cobbo in the family. Her name was Sylvia Cobbo. So if there's any Sylvia Cobbos out there listening, or you stand from that line, that's where you get your name from. Great-great-grandfather was Fred Embry. And from my grandmother's mother's side, she was a Kanju woman. Kanju woman in Gamilaroi. So the Starlights from up that way to Kanju country. And down Gamilaroi way is the Walker family from Mungandai. So my great-great-grandmother was from Gamilaroi country. Mungandai, I think that's how you say the word.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got a bit of little Korean blood in me too.
So you got a bit of connections everywhere along the east coast, eh?
Yeah.
Well, that's all right. Well, thanks for sharing, Alex, about who you're mob and where you're from. Of course, you have a very extensive family history that I'm sure you're very proud of in terms of how far you've come along, and of course every day what you do for work, and I guess how you present yourself is coming from that long line of your mob, which is amazing. And just touching on that, Alex, what do you do for work currently? Like, what do you do for a living?
So currently I'm a cultural mentor.
Yep.
I work for a company up here in Cairns. My placement is Cairns based at the moment, but the organisation I work for is Mossman based. So Mossman is our head office.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm a cultural mentor. The organisation itself is called Cherbourg, and Cherbourg is a PVC for native title, so they look after everything on Yalanji country.
Yeah, nice.
And so basically they were involved with rangers, looking after land and sea management for a long, long time.
Nice.
But then recently the On Country program come on board.
Yep.
So that was a pilot program for 3 locations, Mount Isa, Townsville and Cairns. So Cherbourg tendered for it and they won it. So now they're taking like a youth approach.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm working with young fellas and I take them up on country, cultural healing, deal with kids in the Youth Justice Act and obviously under child safety.
Yeah, nice. And definitely that's a testament that I hear as well, that our kids belong on country. And that's where some organisations, of course you and I both know, working in the youth industry, that there are some organisations that really can't wrap their head around that, which is bad to see, but as well the work that you and I do, and I guess other organisations that do have it right, it's definitely something where our kids definitely need to be out on country where they can, of course, find out certain traditional knowledge, but as well as, being on land, it gives you time to heal, but as well get away from, the glitz and the glamour of the city, for sure.
Yeah, that's the good thing that I know, is that we get all the young boys from Cairns.
Yeah.
We take them up to multiple places in the Yalanji country. We go up to the Upper Daintree River. There's a spot there called Battle Camp.
Mm-hmm.
Our base camp is on the other side of the Daintree River, and that's called Wawidimbi. And we even go up to like Guru China camp up near Woodjall. So we've got a large selection of land to go and take these young fellas back and reconnect them.
Yeah, no.
Through cultural healing. But the young boys, when they go up there, they love it, eh?
No, that's good. Well, you took me up there in terms of just a little short tour that you gave me when I was up there around Christmas time last year. And yeah, even when I was there, not necessarily have any traditional connections to that land, but I definitely felt as though, I was at home, and because it was just so peaceful. It's, it's an untouched rainforest. Also the oldest rainforest in the world, something that they just discovered in the last couple of years, that there's just a lot of history and a lot of, it just felt like home when I was there. And definitely something.
You definitely feel it. You definitely feel it in the spirit when you're there.
Yeah, you feel how strong that connection is, yeah. Cool.
And I suppose it'd be the same if you went out to Ayers Rock and visited that, Uluru.
Yeah.
If you went out and visited Uluru, you feel that real strong spiritual connection. And it's the same thing like this way, I'm lucky to be blessed with coming from tribes from all over Cape York, Karanju, Okla, Yalanji.
Yeah.
And the spirit is still strong up here.
For sure.
Practices, like in my Yalanji family, I've still got family members that can speak fluent Yalanji.
And that's such a blessing too, because you only, and so, blackfellas like myself, you only hear about certain mob that have connections to their language, but as well to even a few of their songs and all that traditional knowledge. And that's, such a blessing that I guess, you're also taken on to learn a few of those things yet as well, eh?
Yeah, I know a few words, but I can't string a full sentence together just yet.
Yeah.
But we have songs and everything that are sung in Yalanji.
Yep.
So me, myself, I'm a direct descendant of Kuku country, so you got members that are from Yalanji country, they connect to all 3 clan groups.
Mm-hmm.
But my family just come from that one clan group, so.
Oh, right.
And we speak our own language.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the so different language,
there's It's the Yalanji that we use, but with our own Kuku language as well.
Yeah, nice. Well, thanks for sharing your story and I guess, a bit of your family history there, Alex. So it's always a blessing and I guess a privilege to hear on people's sense of belonging and where they're from. It's definitely, like I said, a privilege to hear. And, you and I are good friends, so you've told me this one before, and it's always, I'm always excited to hear about your mob brother. So, like I said before, I guess you came in here, Alex. Today's topic that I wanted really to touch on is something that just happened a couple of weeks ago. Depending on what you call it, many people don't give it a name, or there's all different types of names for it, depending on the community you're from. But I call it Invasion Day. Whatever you call it as well, you probably call it Invasion Day. You hear some other mob call it Survival Day. Or people just call it Jan 26th and don't give it a name at all. So just in terms of Jan 26th, Invasion Day, Alex, what does that day mean to you? And I guess when it does come around every year, which is inevitable, I guess what's your feeling around it?
Good old January 26th, as the white collar shooter, Australia Day.
Yeah, Australia Day.
Yeah, that day is Hawks branch. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Yep.
So myself, I call it Survival Day.
Mm-hmm.
I just think about when that day comes around, I just think about all our ancestors, my old people in there, like my grandparents that were stolen generation. And I just tend to stay away from social media.
Mm-hmm.
Or any comments on the news. You get the news outlets that are always posting the marches, everything that are up there that our mob always do, every year.
And then there's always the comments.
Just filled with negativity.
And the main comment that you see a lot too, and you've seen this as well, is that they show the marches, and then there's that one comment that always says, well, if you don't like Australia Day, just go to work. And then someone would reply to that comment, oh, these mob probably don't even work, they're on Centrelink anyways. It always comes back to that Centrelink and, us mob being on welfare.
We just kick them back in their free house with their free car.
Yep.
Jeez, I wish I had a free house and a free car.
True God.
That'd be true God.
Mate, that'll save so much on these bloody bills. Yeah.
Yeah, no stress. No stress. Just living the free world,
Yeah. And it's definitely there, like you said, Alex, like Survival Day is another day because due to... And that's the thing, stuff necessarily didn't happen on that day. However, that was when the first domino fell in a string of events that occurred to our people, And it's basically the day where... And it wasn't even the first Europeans, but the British had came, the Crown, and then they declared Australia as theirs. And then that's when, they started then killing, raping, pillaging, all this bad stuff, basically an attempted genocide on our people. And I guess what you say as Survival Day, and that's what a lot of people call it Survival Day, is because there was that attempted genocide. However, you and I are still here, We have our family still here. We have mob that still have their language, can still do traditional dance, can still practice traditional cooking methods, eat traditional foods. Like, that's why I guess for people that are listening, Survival Day is another day for Jan 26 because it actually showcases the resilience of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in modern society. And definitely for myself as well, that day means a lot to me in terms of, basically my grandparents as well, my great-grandparents were part of that stolen generation where I don't know my Aboriginal side, and I'm just talking on my mum's side more so, is that, we're still trying to figure out where we're from. So we are from Daly River in Northern Territory. However, it's a bit of a blur as to where we are in terms of that pinpoint location and where our tribe was from. Because, my great-great-grandmother was taken from her family at Daly River and then was taken to Darwin and placed in what they called the Carlin compound for half-caste children. And that's the thing too, in terms of, that remembrance of what those buildings were used for. I was actually in Darwin for Christmas, New Year's, for heading into last year, so 2020 New Year's into 2021, and we actually went to the location of the Carlin compound. It was on the main road. However, we missed that there was a monument there or a plaque that was placed there because it was so small that you really couldn't see it from the main road unless you actually walked up to where the location is, and there's a rock and then there's a plaque on it that says this plaque is to commemorate the location of the Carlin compound, the home for half-caste children of Darwin. But then that was also the house of a few of the other kids that were taken from communities from the Cape, from northwestern Australia. It was sort of like the main place where a lot of half-caste kids, were taken from their communities. And like I was saying, it's just terrible how, we're just talking about now, like the James Cook statue and everything, and, there's always the statue of these colonizers, these explorers, as people would call them. However, whenever there's a time or a place where, blackfellas or even just trying to commemorate the bad things that happen, it's really downplayed. And that's something that we always hear as well around Jan 26 is that, it happened so long ago, forget about it. However, the rights for Aboriginal people to vote and be counted in the consensus was 1967 in the referendum. You think of it, 1967 is what, 50, 60 years ago?
Yeah, it's not that long ago.
And the funny thing is, not funny, but sad thing is I looked up the stats on terms of the percentage of voters, and in Townsville, I think it was around over 85% of Townsville citizens said no. Of course, the whole nation, 90% said yes. However, if you look in the analytics and go down right in it, the community that you and I grew up, brother, back then, 85% of Townsville voters said no to allow Aboriginals to be counted as equals.
Yeah, Townsville, man, growing up in Townsville, I've had my fair share of racism down there, right?
Yeah. And definitely around this time of year, around that end of January. And I guess that goes on to my next, question. Do you remember the earliest time where you actually figured out the true meaning of this date?
Brother, I'll be honest with you, the first time I started learning about Australia Day was when I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
In primary school, it was celebrating. You're young, everyone's celebrating Australia Day. You're just celebrating the fucking arrival of Captain Cook.
Yep.
And then as I got older, I started to think back to my primary school days. Why don't we celebrate, Aboriginal? It's always Captain Cook.
Yeah.
And as I got into high school, I started getting more and more educated on it. Getting older and older. And I had people, like, no, we don't celebrate Australia Day. And I just started asking questions. And then I started looking into it more myself. And it's just a celebration of the first fleet that arrived.
Yeah.
In the Sydney Cove. Why would you celebrate that? Because what they did after that is just genocide.
Yeah, and like I said,
that's why I call it Survival Day now, because they tried to wipe us out, but no, we're still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still breathing. And I take them young fellas up on the country, and they're still practicing culture.
Yeah,
it can't be taken away from us.
And that's another thing. It's not just the culture as well, but as well that skin color. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because they try to breed out the black skin, the dark skin as well. So it's a testament, of course, for the culture side of things. Because at the end of the day, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture is not necessarily based on colour. It's based on the connection. But definitely for what happened, and of course the injustices that occurred to our people, is one of the main reasons why they wanted to, take away the half-caste children from their families, is to further breed out the black. So definitely for you and I, for our skin tone, as well as a few people that we know, that the fact that we're dark skinned by not being of African descent or Indian descent, that we're dark skinned from our mob and our people from the land of Australia, that then is a smack in the face to those people that were celebrating it back then. but as well that started all of the injustices that happen.
Right. I even been to Cooktown a few times when I was younger.
They still do the reenactment, don't they?
Yeah, but that's what I was getting towards now.
Yep.
Like, I lived up there when I was 5, going into 6 years old, and then I moved back up there again to live with my sister when I was 10.
Yeah.
And you go there and you see the reenactment of Captain Cook, someone dressed up as Captain Cook, shooting blackfellas as he drives into Cooktown in his fucking ship. And they just found that shit, somewhere over fucking in America.
Yeah.
I should burn that cunt.
Well, see, that's the thing. Well, James Cook died from from the natives of Hawaii when they killed him there. But I remember I went to Cooktown once when I was a young fella too. But this was around the time when I sort of figured out what Australia Day was like. Let me just say this: if Cooktown still does the reenactment, that's terrible. But Cooktown still has the best pies I've ever tasted in North Queensland. I don't think I've found a better location where they make the best pies. You know what I mean? Cloncurry is a close second, but Cooktown has good pies. Yeah. But I guess in terms of my story on how I figured out the date too, brother, is that I remember I come home. Oh, no, it wasn't even come home because it's a public holiday, so I was already at home. But leading up to it, I remember we were learning about the First Fleet. This was primary school, right? I went to Kerwin Primary, and we were learning about the First Fleet, James Cook, and all this stuff about how they went to Botany Bay and that. And then I remember I come out, and all my mob was there. My mother, sister, a few cousins were over that day for some reason. And I come out, I hugged my mum and hugged my sister. I was like, "Oh, happy Australia Day." And then, and that's the thing, as a kid, you're oblivious to the true meaning. So Mum stopped me. Mum was like, "Hold on, we in this house, we don't say that. We don't celebrate that." And, then the curious happened. Why? Why don't we celebrate our nation? And Mum turned around and she was like, "Well, it's Invasion Day." And that's when I learnt, okay, that was the day that the white man came, basically. That's the language we used at home, was the white man come, and that's what started all these injustices. So in terms of the curriculum that still goes on till this day, is that it still doesn't tell the truth. It only glamorizes the fact that they arrived, because at the end of the day, the education system that we have and that we've had in this country for 230 years or however long they've been here, it only shows and glamorizes the good stuff. Yeah, they arrived, they brought government, they brought education, they brought whatever. And they brought, whatever they thought they brought that was positive to our people. We learnt that all at home. We didn't learn that in the school system.
Yeah.
Because the school system and the curriculum that has been around for 30, 40, 50 plus years, it's going to continue to tell the same story because it was developed by the mob back then that didn't think that blacks should even be counted as humans in the Constitution. So, yeah, it's definitely something that definitely needs to be changed in terms of that early learning stuff from primary school and high school.
Yeah.
Because you hear about it as well, like over in Germany around the Holocaust, and, it's not that they hide that. The German Education Board, they don't hide the fact that has happened. It's part of their history. They can't change it. But we can change on how we educate the future leaders of this country so it doesn't happen again. And I think that's where it gets lost in the translation on, we want to change the date. We want to change the meaning of it and change on how we can celebrate all together. However, it gets lost because people are then like, but it happened so long ago, we have to figure out how we move forward. Yeah, we can move forward, but whilst we're moving forward as a nation, we still have curriculum, we still have health laws, we still have all these barriers in place that keep a certain type of people in this country down, keeps them oppressed.
A good example of that, brother, is you look at all the communities.
Mm-hmm.
They can't even have any alcohol in the communities.
No, there's alcohol restrictions, yep.
Yeah. For example, what's communities connected to the mainland, like Cherbourg and Yarrabah?
Mm-hmm.
Warrabinda, they're all connected to mainland, and they've got towns, like cities that are just there. Cherbourg, you've got Morgan, Warrabinda's got Rocky, and Yarrabah, you've got Cairns, we're just there.
Yep.
But, they can't come in and celebrate a birthday party or an event. They can't come in and get alcohol and go back over there and celebrate. Because why? Nah, you can't have alcohol in your community.
Yep.
Because it causes domestic violence and everything else.
Yeah. And that's
but
the thing.
You go out on a night out in town and you see how many fucking white fellas are drunk and charged up and fucking cleaned out of their head.
It's the double standards that continue to happen, and it's not just on gender; it's on race. Because you hear double standards being chucked around all the time. But even when I lived in Bummergut too, like there wasn't much. There is alcohol restrictions there, but it's not as heavy as what I hear in these other communities. But even then, like you hear the terms that are used in the community. So like in Bummergut, you have the 5 communities, sort of Bummergut's one of them, and then you have the 4 surrounding, you have Sasia, New Mapoon, your Magico and Ingenuit. However, there's a 6th unspoken community that not too many people know about. It's only known to the locals, and they call it White Man Town. And, that then goes off, they're like you said, Cherbourg, of course, was the Aboriginal mission, but then Morgan is what would be counted then as the White Man Town.
White Man Town.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's the term that some communities use, is that there's that bridge that goes over to that other side where the rules are different. And that's basically something that you see in Bummerger as well, is that, there's that separation, but it's something in terms of that rules and just double standards, it still does occur, for sure.
For sure.
But I guess then, just moving on to our next one, I was talking about it in terms of, okay, Australia Day, our Invasion Day, Jan 26th, it really doesn't, have a shared meaning amongst all Australians or amongst all people of Australia. Do you see a future where there is a date that we can all celebrate, Alex?
I really hope for one.
Yeah.
But at this point in time, I don't see it changing anytime soon.
Okay. And why is that, you think?
Oh, mate. It's just the same story every year.
Yeah.
You get our mob protest against it, but you still get the white mob that still celebrated hardcore. And, it should be a day that... Australia Day should be a day celebrated amongst all Australians, Indigenous, foreigners, British, whatever, but not for that day. Not that day right there,
Not Jan 26th.
Not January 26th.
Yeah.
Why not January 1st?
Yeah, true. January 1st has always been a day that has been chucked around because it was the day of the federation of the governments.
Yeah.
Of all the state governments around Australia, yep. For me, and this is something, I did a bit of research leading into this episode because I sort of wanted to see what you think about it, Alex. So, 27th of May 1967 was the referendum, right? And then the 11th of June, if I'm not mistaken, the 11th of June in the early 70s was when the Holt government, they decided on... it was one of those governments, if I should say. I think Holt wasn't in office by then. But anyways, what I was going to say is that by the 11th of June in the early 70s, there was a push to break down what was called the White Australia policy. And, that was the policy in which not just what discriminated against the First Nations people of this country, but it also discriminated against foreigners that were trying to make their way into Australia. So the White Australia policy was first developed around the gold rush times when, the Chinese and the Japanese would come over freely, to set up camp here to take part in the gold rush, the Eureka times they call it. And sorry, the point I'm getting to is that why not, we have a reconciliation week, and that usually ends around, Mabo Day, the 3rd of June. But in terms of that reconciliation week, as reconciliation is viewed as two parties coming together on a shared agreement, basically like a treaty, or coming together to, move forward. That's what reconciliation means. How about we change Reconciliation Week into a celebration week of the country of Australia? And what I mean by that is the 27th of May, of course, usually the start of Reconciliation Week. It celebrates when Aboriginals were counted, were to be counted in the consensus and the Constitution. However, the start of June also was the time when, the Racial Discrimination Act was passed, which stopped allowing Australian governments to discriminate against foreigners, more so brown foreigners coming into the country. So what I'm getting at, sorry, just rumbling on here, but basically what I'm saying is that we need to celebrate the resilience and the fight of the First Nations people to still be treated as equal in this country. But then from what modern Australian society reflects is that we're very multicultural now, and we can't stop that. There's always people moving in. There's always people coming here and, I guess, using Australia as a working place. A lot of foreigners, they travel around the country. So in terms of a celebration, I'll say we move it from a singular day because of the fact that Australia is so great in terms of the resiliency and the power of the First Nations people, but as well as moving forward as a whole. Australia isn't just black and white anymore. Australia is black, white, I don't really want to use colours, but like Australia is black, white, red, yellow, green, brindle. We all here now. So how are we going to move forward? And this is what I see in my mind. How are we going to move forward is we celebrate all the cultures that contributed positively to how Australia looks now, as well as pay respect to the sacrifice that the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people made to allow these people to come here. And that's the thing, Australian society, as well as any Western society, I should say, it's all about what can you give, what can you give, what can you give. But for us to move forward, we have to then respect the people that a lot of stuff was taken away from them.
Exactly.
I'm not saying that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people haven't given to the fabric of this country, but a lot of it more so was taken away from them than really what was given to them. What do you think of that?
I reckon that's a pretty good idea. You have a whole week celebration.
And like I said, we already do it with a Reconciliation Week, and we can end it on a long weekend where the Friday of that week is then the celebration day, and then everyone loves a long weekend in Australia. You can't get that wrong. Everyone drinks on bloody, Easter weekend. And it's not about just drinking, but everyone enjoys a long weekend.
Yeah, everyone enjoys any little bit of time they can get.
Yeah, any time off they can get from work without it going into their leave balances, everyone loves it.
That's right.
But yeah, so,
I reckon that's a good approach.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The Reconciliation Week is already there that everyone celebrates. Even though it's Indigenous themed all the time, of course, because reconciliation has to come from, the people, of course, that cause the injustices. But moving forward, Reconciliation Week can then be changed to the celebration week of this country. That's in my mind, anyways.
I reckon that's a daily way to do it, Russ.
Yeah.
You just have a whole week celebration.
Well, hopefully ScoMo's listening to this episode so he can make some change. Yeah.
Who?
ScoMo there. ScoMo Friday.
In him.
Scott Morrison Friday there, my brother.
That.
No,
Last night he was rude.
He wish. Fuck that, eh?
But
No.
Back to it, brother. I hated that.
Yeah.
As I said before, I call it survival day because I just like to think about my grandparents.
Yeah. You really think about, like myself, I don't go out on Jan 26, bro. Invasion Day, I don't go out anywhere. I stay home and I listen to music.
I try to just, if I can do it, I like to be out in the bush, out in the scrub. Back.
Yeah.
Bare feet into the country.
That's all right.
Walking on the land that your ancestors walked.
Yeah, cool. No, and that's definitely it. And some people, some other people probably do that too around the country where they go out. You know, you even see some people protest sometimes in the bigger cities.
Yeah.
But then I guess if you have that opportunity, go to celebrate, or even not even celebrate, but go back to the land and, you know, respect the resilience that you're still there, even though what has happened to the people that come before us.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess after that's a very big discussion.
Yeah, no, that was a good talking point there, brother.
Yeah, no, that's all.
It's a very touchy subject that needs to be spoken about.
Yeah, and
as much as we can.
And I understand that you know I've seen your statuses that you've shared and stuff that you know that you posted up a couple of years ago in your early days of Facebook. That, and of course it's still a topic that you know you're very strongly passionate about, and of course I'm very strongly passionate about in terms of not you know of course changing the date, but we're not trying to change the meaning. Celebrate this country that we live in every day, but then we have to change the date so all of us moving forward can celebrate the true history of this country.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you a story, brother. Going back to work and stuff like that. So before I got into youth work, I used to be a diver. So I used to do the crown and starfish on the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah, nice.
A very, very deadly job, you know, if you're young, single, and you want good money, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But my supervisor out there, he was from Perth. He was from a little suburb in Perth called Midland.
Midland?
Pretty sure that's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
And every time I was out there for work, which was for the last 6 years, for 6 years of being out there on the water, I'd always be out on the road for Australia Day.
Yep.
And that supervisor, you know, we'd have our lunch, we'd do our guys in the morning, we'd have our lunch. He wouldn't let anyone eat until we had a minute's silence to remember the old people that passed away.
Yeah.
And this fellow, man, he was deadly. Like he was my supervisor, but now he's a very good friend. He's someone I hold close to my heart. You know, I've got a lot of time and respect for him.
Nice.
But that's what he used to do. You know, no one eat this lunch until we have a minute's silence for the old people that died.
Yeah. And that's definitely something that's always forgotten about too. Like, in terms of course, what the date means, but as well as the mob that fought, you know, tried to keep of course, you know, their guns were never a match. You know, our weapons were never a match for their weapons. But yeah, there were a lot of lives lost on this soil, and not too many people realise that.
Yeah, I'll tell you another funny story, bro.
Yeah.
When I was working out on the boat, we went up to Lizard Island. So I was lucky enough to dive a lot on the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah.
So the furthest north we'd go is the Lizard Island region.
Mm-hmm.
So Lizard Island is where fuckface Captain Cook stopped his fucking boat.
Yeah.
He went up to the top of Lizard Island. It's a pretty high barren island. It's like, you look at it, it's just a barren wasteland. It's just dead. But anyways, he went up to the top of Lizard Island to work out his route into Cooktown. And they call it Cook's Look. So it's Cook's Look out.
Yeah. Everything got to be named Cook.
So there's a hiking track to get up there, you know, and good view. I didn't make it all the way up because, tell you now, Murray was fuck climbing them rocks. And here, I'll tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
We tried to get up there for the sunrise, 5 o'clock in the morning and dark. We didn't know where the footpath was to get up there.
How
we climbing
low?
up the side of the fucking hill.
They think they Bear Grylls. Yep.
Yeah, we're climbing rocks, high grass. And it was taking it out of me. I was bugging it. I'll just stop here. But we had a fair few black fellas that worked on the boat, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders. One of them young fellas, he got up to the top. And there's a little plaque there that says, "Here, Captain Cook looked into Cooktown to find his way in." And that young fella, he just fucking chucked a piss all over that sign.
Oh, Connie.
Run back down any time we were about to do that. We're like, yeah. I went up there. Captain Cook's sign was there. Just chucked a piss all over it. And then I run back down.
Don't say any names because we might get investigated. Yeah.
Nah. No, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's another spot there now. It's a good island, eh? So.
Yeah. Cook's Look, eh? All right. Well, I'll do a bit of research and I might go leave something there for him too. Yeah. But yeah.
If you got time to go up there, you know, there's a 5-star resort there. You can walk up to the top.
I'm not as rich as you, Alex.
You can go up there and take a shit on the fucking park if you want.
Yeah, I'm not as rich as you. I can't go stay in 5-star hotel resort. Fuck you. Nah, go.
I wish I was rich.
If I was rich, I don't know what I'd buy. Yeah.
But see, we're not rich. We get everything for free. So.
Oh yeah, we get everything for
we
free.
should have all the money in the world.
Yeah. No, and the Australian government is still in a deficit. But we only take up 2% of the population. Yet people believe we all on welfare out here. But anyways, that's just another conversation for another day. But I'd just like to thank you, Brother Alex, for, of course, being my first guest on this podcast, but as well your contribution to today's episode and your time. I wouldn't want to take any more of your Saturday night off you because I don't want to say anything more. But thanks for your time and all your support. And, you're one of the very few friends that was sort of in my corner when I was talking about the podcast and getting this off the ground. So thank you for that.
All good.
Oh, that's right. And I guess just to end the episode, I just want to, and this is what I'll do for all my episodes, my brother, but for you, do you have, just a little message for my listeners and something that they can take away from this episode at all?
Yeah, sure, brother. I've got a little message that I'd like to pass on to all the listeners.
Yep.
Especially for us black fellas, last year's NAIDOC team was Hill Country.
Yes, yep.
So this message I have relates very closely to that. So I'd just like to let all the mob know that this is what I've got for you. Healing is not just the removal of symptoms. It is the return of life and the living of it.
Jeez. That was deep. Good words.
So if you didn't hear that properly, healing is not just the removal of symptoms. It is the return of life and the living of it. So all the mob out there, stay strong because we're still here.
Yep. And we're still going to continue to be here because a lot of you are still making babies out there, which is good. We need more black babies. Yeah.
We need more black love.
Yep. We need more black families out there, guys.
I'm all for mixed babies. We need more black relationships out there.
Yeah. Hey, nothing wrong with the mixed bag because, like I said, we're all multicultural, but...
That's it. Nothing wrong with that.
Let me just say, for me, it would be more cute to see a lot more dark-skinned babies out there. Yeah.
That's it.
But I guess with that all being said, thank you for your message there, Alex. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all your support. My YouTube page is getting up to just over 20 subscribers. So thank you for all those subscribers that have subscribed to the page. Of course, if you're listening to this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And definitely keep an eye out on my social media for, I guess, any more advertisements for the next episode. And yeah, thank you for all your support, Big Esso, and one love.
Thanks again, Big Will.
All goods, Alex.